Hello and welcome to the Intramural Sports Participant Meeting. I'm Ryan Bradshaw, Intramural and Club Sports Coordinator here at Mount Royal University Recreation. Over the next few minutes, we'll be going over the policies of our intramural sports program. As a participant, it is your right and responsibility to know these rules while you are playing in our league. At the end of this video, you will need to complete a 20-question quiz in order to register your team on IMLeagues. Please note, this must be completed by noon on the Friday following your registration deadline in order for your team to be scheduled for games. Below is a list of the Fall 2012 Intramural Organizing Committee members. Each of these individuals are responsible for a specific sport and should be your main point of contact for any issues that may arise during the season. The best way to contact them is through the email addresses on the screen or by stopping at the U125 office. The Recreation Administrative offices are open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and are located in U231. The Recreation Center is open 7 days a week. The hours are listed on the screen below. To contact the Rec Center, please call 403-440-6517. I'm sure you're wondering, why am I watching this video? Each participant is responsible for knowing his or her responsibilities and rights while participating in an intramural sports event. Unfortunately, it's not possible to have all 1,300 participants who participate in intramural sports each year watch this video. That's where you, the captain, comes in. It is your responsibility to inform your teammates of their rights and responsibilities. Participants can find their responsibilities and rights in the Intramural Sports Participant Guidebook. Each captain is responsible for reading the entire handbook and can find it online on the IMLeagues website. All teams must be registered on IMLeagues by noon on the Friday following their registration deadline. All players must be registered on IMLeagues by Friday, October 5th in order to be eligible to play in games. There is a one-time exception for last-minute fill-ins. If you or your teammates are having trouble registering on IMLeagues, visit the Intramural homepage, mtroyal.ca/recreation/intramurals to view an instructional video on how to get your team registered. Need additional help with IMLeagues? Click on the live chat button on the top right corner of your screen while on IMLeagues. Every player is required to complete a waiver prior to participating in any intramural sports event. Waivers can be completed online through the IMLeagues website. Any player who does not complete the online waiver will be required to complete a paper waiver at the game site. All game schedules can be found online on the IMLeagues website. They are also posted on the screens outside U125, the Intramural Sports Office. Due to the availability of our facilities and the structure of our leagues, not all time preference requests can be honored. The Intramural Sports staff will attempt to accommodate all scheduling requests to the best of our ability. Teams will receive their first week schedules by the end of business on the Friday following their registration deadline. No changes will be made to the schedule once it has been posted. Intramural Sports guarantees the number of games a team is scheduled for. However, we cannot guarantee the number of completed games due to team forfeits, defaults, or facility changes. Games will not be rescheduled as a result of a default. All participants will check in through the Recreation Customer Service Center for each game. MRU students and Recreation members will use their campus cards and go through the turnstiles. Non-members can check in at the desk with proper photo ID. All participants must bring photo ID to every game. Any participant without proper photo ID will not be able to enter the facility or play. Once participants have entered the facility, they must check in with the sports supervisor. Picture ID must be presented in order to participate within each game.
Come on, baby.
No.
I swear it's me.
Don't call me.
Participants without proper ID will not be allowed to play. This is not protestable. Students, staff, faculty, and the general public are eligible to participate in intramural sports here at Mount Royal. Only Mount Royal students and recreation members are eligible to join individual teams. That being said, there are some individuals who are ineligible to play in our leagues. Current varsity athletes in the same or similar sport attending any post-secondary institution. Present or past professional athletes in the same or similar sport. Individuals under the age of 18 who are not currently enrolled at Mount Royal. Suspended or delinquent participants. Major league athletes. Premier level athletes. Major junior athletes and national team athletes in the same or similar sport are not eligible to play intramural sports. Teams found using ineligible players may be penalized with default penalties or may be removed from the league. participants may only play on one team per gender division per sport. For example, a participant can play on a men's basketball team and a mixed basketball team. However, a participant may not play on a mixed Tier 1 basketball team and a mixed Tier 2 basketball team. Participants must play in at least 3 games for a team in order to be eligible for playoffs. Exceptions may be made in the case of an injury. Be sure to ask your IOC member in advance. Captains are responsible to be aware of their players' eligibility status. Participants are responsible to properly check in with supervisors at each game to make sure they reach eligibility requirements. So what do you do if you think the other team is using an ineligible player? First, be sure to tell the game officials before the game ends. Second, file a written protest to rjbradshaw@mtroyal.ca within 48 hours of a regular season game or 1 hour of a playoff game. Sportsmanship is a rating of the opposing team's quality of sportsmanship throughout the course of a game. Ratings are handed out at the end of each game. Teams are rated by officials and by the opposing team's captain. The 2 ratings are averaged for 1 total rating. Teams must average a sportsmanship rating of 2.1 or higher over the course of the season in order to be eligible for the playoffs, regardless of their place in the standings. Any team receiving 2 zeros in sportsmanship will be removed from the league. Sportsmanship ratings run from 0 to 4, with 0 being unacceptable conduct and 4 being excellent conduct. A rough guide to sportsmanship ratings is presented below. In any game where one participant is ejected, their team will receive an automatic sportsmanship rating of 1. If 2 players from the same team are ejected, their team will receive an automatic sportsmanship rating of 0. Participants are expected to treat recreation staff and fellow participants with respect. Abusive language and behavior are not acceptable. Please only have captains speak with the officials and do so in a respectful manner. Officials and staff have the right to end games if inappropriate behavior persists. All participants are governed by the Mount Royal University Code of Personal Conduct while on campus. MRU students are governed by the Code of Student Conduct while participating. Any incident may be reported as a violation of the code. Penalties may include suspension or expulsion from Mount Royal University. All participants may have facility access privileges revoked or face criminal charges for inappropriate actions. In the event of inappropriate behavior, we use a 5-class system to determine which sanctions will be imposed. Sanctions can range from a 1-game suspension for a Class 1 offense to a lifetime ban for a Class 5 offense. For more examples of suspension guidelines, please view your Intramural Participant Handbook available on IMLeagues. If you or one of your teammates is suspended, you may appeal the decision in writing by sending an email to rjbradshaw@mtroyal.ca within 3 school days of the suspension notice. The appeal will be evaluated by a minimum of 2 IOC members who have not been part of the original decision. During an appeal, the IOC members may reduce, maintain, or increase the suspension. Participants may not drink alcohol or use non-prescription drugs before or while participating in any intramural event. Violations will result in immediate removal from the league. In all intramural leagues, teams will receive 3 points for a win, 2 points for a tie, 1 point for a loss, no points for a forfeit, and will lose 3 points for a default. In the event of a tie in the standings at the end of the season, we'd use the following tie-breaking method. First, we'd look at highest sportsmanship rating. Next, we'd look at head-to-head competition. Next, we'd look at wins. Finally, if everything's still tied, we'll look at the goals for and goals against ratio, or sets won, sets lost ratio. You can check out equipment for warm-up at the customer service desk. Current student ID or photo ID card is required in exchange for the equipment. A default occurs if a team fails to have enough players ready to play within 10 minutes of their game's scheduled start time. Please note that if your team does show up but you do not have enough players or players of a specific gender, this is still considered a default. In the event of a default, the team defaulting the game will be issued a sportsmanship rating of 0 and will lose 3 points in the standings. The opposing team, provided they are prepared to play and have enough players, will receive a sportsmanship rating of 4. The defaulting team will be required to pay a $50 default bond within 48 hours of the defaulted game in order to remain in the league. Remember, if your team receives 2 zeros for sportsmanship in a season, your team will be removed from the league. Forfeits are accepted up to 48 hours in advance of a scheduled game by sending an email to your sports IOC member. Teams forfeiting a game will receive a sportsmanship rating of 1. There are 2 types of acceptable protests: player eligibility protests, which we have already covered, and rule interpretation protests. So what do you do if you want to protest a rule interpretation? First off, make sure that it is not a judgment call. Examples of judgment calls are players stepping out of bounds, balls entering the net for a goal, or an official calling a penalty. Next, if it is not a judgment call, inform the official that you want to protest before play resumes. After the game, file a written protest to RJ Bradshaw at mtroyal.ca within 48 hours of a regular season game or 1 hour of a playoff game. Jewelry cannot be worn on exposed skin during intramural play. This includes, but is not limited to, legs, ankles, arms, wrists, hands, fingers, necks, lips, noses, ears, and eyebrows of participants. Covering jewelry is not acceptable. There are 2 exceptions to the jewelry policy. One is for medical alert bracelets, the second for religious medallions. In either case, the piece of jewelry still must be completely covered and safe for all participants. If you have any questions, please contact your IOC member. Any person with an open wound may not continue to play in the game. You must leave the game until the bleeding stops and a wound is properly covered. Supervisors are trained to provide first aid and can help you out at the game site. Any clothing with blood or fluids on them must be removed before a participant can continue playing in the game. Be sure to have extra clothing available for all your participants in case this happens. Jerseys will be available for checkout at the facility from the game supervisor. ID must be used in order to check out the jerseys. The ID will not be returned until all jerseys have been given back. Intramural Sports does not carry health insurance. However, all Alberta legal residents have coverage through Alberta Health. All Mount Royal University students and staff have access to medical care through wellness services. First aid is available on site from all supervisors. Please inform the supervisor of any injuries. In the event of an injury, recreation staff will call emergency medical services if they deem it to be necessary. On-site assessment by EMS may have a cost to the participant. Costs will be incurred if the participant receives treatment or is transported by EMS. A few helpful tips to remember to avoid injury. Spend at least 15 minutes warming up and stretching prior to the event. Stretch all major muscle groups including the legs, arms, and back, and hydrate before, during, and after the event, especially if the temperatures are warm. The Optimal Therapies department on campus is available for massage therapy, athletic therapy, and physical therapy. They are open Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. If you have an injury or have an activity-related problem, please call 403-440-6917 to book an appointment. Intramural Sports is sponsored by Local 002, which is located on Richmond Road, just behind our soccer fields. All intramural participants will receive 15% off with their discount cards. Cards will be available for pickup during the first week of games. This year's champions will also receive a gift card from Local 002. Intramural Sports is always looking for great new officials. It is an excellent part-time job on campus with pay starting at $11 per hour. If you're interested, speak with an IOC member or check out the Intramural website for clinic dates and times. If you have any questions at any time throughout the course of the season, feel free to contact me at rjbradshaw@mtroyal.ca or ask any of your IOC members. Thank you for watching this video. You may now click the Begin Quiz button on IMLeagues. Please remember, you must pass this quiz before your team can be scheduled for games. Thank you for participating in Intramural Sports, and good luck this upcoming season.